Hello guys, today I'll be ranking the Korn albums. Korn is one of my favorite bands. They were also one of the first bands that I ever got into at a young age, along with other bands like Linkin Park, 3 Days Grace, and some others. But keep in mind, I'll be going from worst to best, and that placements in my ranking could change at any time too. They could even change as soon as even tomorrow, maybe. But anyways, let's go ahead and dive into this ranking. At the bottom, I have Path of Totality. Now, with this album, when it came out, I was super disappointed. I was not happy, but I did like a couple songs, and I still like these two songs today. Those songs being Narcissistic Cannibal and Get Up. I think those songs are still pretty good for what they are. And you also have the song Fuels the Comedy, which I think is an okay song. I think it was a bonus track. I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure it was. But yeah, that's a decent song too. But yeah, I can never get heavily into this album for some reason. I mean, I'm all for exploring new sounds, experimenting, stuff like that. But when it comes to this album, it just didn't work for me. But I am happy that I do at least like something from the album. But anyways, let's go and move on to the next album in my ranking, the Untitled album from 2007. Now, this album does have its following. I've noticed some of these fans too through like YouTube or iTunes or whatever, but it's just never been one of my personal favorites. I do like it. I mean, earlier, like during the first few years when I was into Korn, I wasn't really into this album, but over time, the album really grew on me. I mean, it's still not one of my favorites, but I do like it now more compared to when I was younger, I guess you could say. But some of my favorites are Starting Over, Evolution, Hold On, and Innocent Bystander. But yeah, this album does have its share of great songs, but the album in general has just never been one of my favorites, and the replay value isn't as impressive as the replay value of other albums in front of it. But anyways, let's go ahead and move on to the next album, Korn 3. Now, this album and the next album honestly go back and forth for me. But with this album, it was kind of a return to form for them, because Untitled was kind of different for them. It sometimes felt industrial at times too. But with Korn 3, some of my favorites are Oildale, Let the Guilt Go, Pop a Pill, Lead the Parade, I think is kind of an underrated song. But yeah, this is a good album, just not one of my personal favorites. And same with the next album, Paradigm Shift. Now, when the album came out, I loved it, but I think time hasn't really done that album many favors, at least in my opinion, or at least for me. But some of my favorites on the album are Pray For Me, Love and Meth, Never Never, which actually grew on me because it was actually one of my least favorites when the album came out, but it's actually grown on me and grown to be, of course, one of my favorites on the album. And then you have the song Punishment Time, which I think is probably one of the most underrated songs and one of my favorites on the album. Really love that song. And I don't know what it is about that song. I don't know. I just seem to gravitate to that song more than some of the other songs on the album, maybe. But you do have some other great songs like What We Do and It's All Wrong and some others. But yeah, it's a good album. Just not again one of my favorites. But next we have See You on the Other Side, which has the hit Coming Undone, which is of course one of my favorites on the album. But some of my other favorites are Twisted Transistor, Politics, Liar, and Hypocrites. Now with this album, they experimented a little bit more. You can get a little bit of atmosphere here and there throughout the album. And yeah, it was definitely different for sure when it came out. But yeah, it's not one of my favorites, but I do like it though. My main problem with the album is that I do feel like it could have benefited from more trimming, because the album can feel a bit long at times. But either way, I still think it's a good album, but it's definitely far from perfect. But again, I do like the album overall. But next we have the album Serenity of Suffering. I absolutely loved this album when it came out, and I still dig it today. Now, not all the songs hold up the greatest, but a good number of them I still enjoy today. But some of my favorites are Insane, Rotting in Vain, Different World, When You're Not There, and then you have the song Next in Line, which I think is a pretty underrated song. But yeah, really dig this album. If I remember correctly, Nick Raskulinecz, if I pronounce his name correctly, produced this album, and he went on to produce their next album, The Nothing, and I hope they continue working with him because, well, he's helped produce or help with other albums that I enjoy from other bands too, like Shogun from Trivium. But yeah, Serenity of Suffering, definitely a great album. But next we have the album Take a Look in the Mirror. Now I might get flack for my placement of this album because I know many people would put it more towards the bottom, which I understand, but I don't know. I like the heaviness of this album, and I think it's kind of underrated. Some of my favorites are Alive, Play Me, Y'all Want a Single. I mean, that song I know is not for every Korn fan, but I personally like it. And then you have Did My Time and Right Now, which are also some of my other favorites on the album. But, I mean, kind of like with See You on the Other Side, I do feel like Take a Look in the Mirror can also feel a bit long too. Not a lot, but there are a few moments where it's like, wish there was maybe more going on or maybe more interesting things going on. But I still do like the album overall. And again, I find it pretty underrated in general. But next we have the album The Nothing, and in my opinion, ever since Head has returned to the band, I think they've gotten better and better with each album they release. But yeah, The Nothing, it was one of my favorite albums of last year, and last year was a great year for music in my opinion. A lot of great releases, like Korn's The Nothing and We Are Not Your Kind from Slipknot, Atonement by Killswitch Engage, and many other great albums. But yeah, Nothing still holds up for me today, and some of my favorites on the album are Cold, You'll Never Find Me, Gravity of Discomfort, This Loss. But you have some other great songs like The Ringmaster, which I think is probably going to go down as one of the most underrated songs. Maybe, I don't know, I really dig that song. And you also have Idiosyncrasy, which if I remember correctly, I think it might have been influenced by just listening to Pantera or something like that. I think one or two of the members were listening to Pantera, and I guess one of the riffs from one of their songs maybe influenced some of the riffs in that song. And I can kind of hear it. You do hear some groove in some of the riffs in that song. And yeah, I think it's another highlight on the album. But yeah, The Nothing, definitely a great album. But next we have Untouchables, and one of the more critically acclaimed albums of their discography, or one of the more critically successful, or however you want to put it. And rightfully so. It's definitely a great album. Even if it's not at the top for me, I still do like it. It is one of their best. Some of my favorites are Here to Stay, Bottled Up Inside, Thoughtless, Alone I Break, and I also think Beat It Upright's kind of an underrated song. Same with Hollow Life. But yeah, Untouchables, still a great album, still holds up for me today. But next we have the album Life is Peachy. Now, I might get some flack for putting this album above Untouchables, and that's totally understandable. I mean, this album is sometimes more towards the middle for some people, but I don't know. I have a lot of great memories with this album, so maybe the nostalgia factor is maybe a part of why this album is closer to the top for me, but either way, still a great album. Some of my favorites are Chi, Good God, No Place to Hide, Wicked, Meditas. But yeah, those are some of my favorites on the album. You also have that cover of Lowrider, which definitely an interesting cover. I can't remember how many times Head does this, but there are some moments in the song where he kind of cracks up. You can hear it a little bit, and it's kind of funny to listen to. But yeah, I kind of like that cover. But yeah, Life is Peachy, definitely a great album, and definitely one of my favorites. But next we have the album Issues, another album that I have a lot of memories with. It was one of those albums I listened to during like long car rides, along with, of course, the albums in front of it too. But yeah, love this album. Some of my favorites are Wake Up, Somebody, Someone, Falling Away From Me, Trash, Make Me Bad. A lot of great songs on the album. And if someone were to say that this album has a lot of filler, I don't know. I don't know if I'd agree with that because, yeah, there are maybe a few songs that you could say maybe reach towards more filler territory, but I don't know. I really dig this album personally. But next we have the album, the self-titled, or their debut self-titled album, however you want to put it. I mean, it's definitely one of their best. No way around it. It was definitely a game changer when it came out. It was basically the album that invented nu metal. At least that's what many people say, and I can agree with that. This album and Snuff the Punk by POD were probably the first nu metal albums to I guess catch on with people. More this album than Snuff the Punk, but I mean, you know what I mean. But this self-titled album still holds up for me today. Definitely dark, definitely raw, but I still really enjoy it today. And it does have some underrated songs too, like Fake and Helmet in the Bush, but even the more known songs on the album still hold up for me today, like Blind and Clown and Chutes and Ladders. But yeah, definitely a classic and definitely still an overall strong album. And at the top, I have Follow the Leader. Now, this album and the previous album in my ranking go back and forth with some people. I mean, I know some people put the debut at the top, but I also see some people put Follow the Leader at the top. But I don't know. I love Follow the Leader. They kind of peaked in the way, in my opinion, at least with certain aspects. Maybe it could be songwriting or maybe just the songs in general. I don't know. But for me, it definitely has to be at the top. I absolutely love the album. It doesn't really have a single weak track on the album in my opinion. Some people might point at All in the Family, but that's not really a song you should take all that seriously because you also have to remember it does have Fred Durst on it. But I think it's kind of a fun song, even though it's kind of childish and dumb, but I don't know, I really dig that song. But yeah, it has some great deep tracks too, like Cameltosis and Justin and some others, but yeah, still a great album and definitely a classic in the nu metal genre. But anyways, that's my ranking. Let me know your thoughts on my ranking. Let me know your ranking in the comment section below. Let me know some of your favorite, least favorite albums and all that good stuff. But anyways, thanks for watching. Please leave a comment to like, subscribe. Have a nice day and take care.